Even plastic plants need love? What are you talking about? Hey everybody, Mark Dolfini, Landlord Coach. I hope you're having an awesome day. So what am I talking about here? That plastic plants need attention too. Well, the whole idea, I was remembering back one time I was walking through a bank. I used to work in the banking industry a long time ago. There's a 12-step process to break down, actually when you leave the banking industry, it's a 12-step program to detox from being a banker. But that's a whole other story. But walking through the bank one time, I was leaving after hours and there was cleaners there. And I remember them, something that they were doing. I just stopped in my tracks, and they were very meticulously wiping off all the leaves and basically dusting, if you will, the plastic plants. And I thought, I never would have even remotely considered to do that. You just kind of think of a plastic plant as something that you kind of stick in the corner and never mess with again. Well, even plastic plants need attention. And I went up to them and I said, what is it you're doing? And I recognize that if they didn't do that, that the dirt will get embedded, into the plastic, and then it kind of ruins it and lowers the basically they don't look as nice. You're right. They don't look as lifelike. And I thought, wow, even plastic plants need attention too. Well, the same goes for your rental business, right? The same goes for really anything that you have. Even if you have, I've made this argument before, if you have silver bars sitting somewhere, even they need maintaining, right? They need security. They need to be maintained. You can't just, kind of leave them banging around in the trunk of a car and think that they're going to be okay. Think that your investment's going to be fine. You're going to knock the silver off them. You're going to damage them. You're going to mess with them, right? But of course, everybody knows that you have to maintain a rental property, and you have to do this all the time. You can't just buy it and think that you're never going to mess with it again. And you have to be very intentional about the maintenance of your properties, because if you buy a property and say you buy it and fix it to brand new, within weeks you're going to have something that's going to need attention. Even the best properties, they're just going to need attention all the time. So you have to put in place a systematic way of making sure that you've got maintenance handled on your properties. Now, lots of people who I know, especially if they think what they're going to do down the road, they get to a certain point, they're going to turn it all over to a property manager, and that's going to be the way that they're going to manage their properties. I'm not saying that that's a bad strategy, but the thing is, now you're putting your biggest assets, your biggest ability to make money in the hands of someone else, that now you have to make sure that they're doing the property preservation piece in addition to the rent collection and enforcement of the lease and doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing, right? So I would say this is why I would tell you as the individual investor, set up your own business to do this, set up your own processes to do this, to make sure that the properties are being inspected and all the maintenance is being maintained in a very methodical, very systematic way. Things as you walk up to the property, you're looking at it from roof line to property line. As you're walking up, you're driving up, you should be looking at all the things, roof line to property line, making sure that all the shingles are there and the gutters. And, as you're scanning the property down, you have a checklist that's put in place. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go into the details on all that. I'm just saying that this is stuff that you need to get in front of. So when so many people are so consumed with the front end of the transaction that they never figure out on the back end how things are actually going to be managed. And that was my biggest mistake. That was my one biggest mistake that if I made, if anything, I was so consumed with how I was going to get the transaction up front and never really paying attention to what I was doing on the back end, never paying attention to how I was actually going to actively manage the maintenance and all of the property preservation pieces of this asset that it took so long to buy. And so it took me so long to get into. So that's why I would say for you, make these things systematic, make these things, get into it. So you're not just, playing from behind, where the first phone call you get is when the limb of the tree that should have been cut down is now sticking through the roof of your rental property, right? That's not a good place to be. Don't negotiate from behind. Always negotiate from a position of strength. So these are the sorts of things that I always try to encourage. Make this systematic. There is, when you're going through these property checklists, I walk through people when I coach them. I walk them through putting checklists in place. You may not be at that place right now where you need to put a checklist together. There's tons of places where you can get checklists out there for property preservation, property maintenance, things like that you need to be checking on. Quite frankly, probably one of the best places, and this is something that I actually kind of created on my own, was the inspection sheet from when I first bought the property. I went through and everything was already in there because they already wrote about it, right? So I could literally go through, roof, shingles, check, gutters. Okay. Are they still there? Okay. Check. Are they sloped the right way? Are they draining right? That's an easy place to go. So if you've already got a property and you've got an inspection report on that, that's an easy way to create a checklist. I don't necessarily want to create a checklist for you because you may live in a part of the country where you may have tile instead of asphalt shingles. Right? That's going to be a little bit different maintenance than it is going to be to an asphalt shingle versus a roof tile. You may have a swamp cooler versus a air conditioning system, things like that. So when you're creating those checklists, this is something you should definitely be doing. Spring and fall. We're right in the fall right now. If you're watching this, on a replay down the road, definitely you want to have at least twice a year where you're going through these. I like to do them in the spring and fall because that is the ideal thing when the leaves are off the trees up here in the north. Kind of getting the gutters cleaned out after all the leaves are off the trees and getting in preparation for the winter, checking the furnace, making sure that the furnace is doing what it's supposed to be doing, making sure the air coil is, cleaned out, making sure the furnace is cleaned out, making sure the squirrel cage is done, is clean. The furnace filter, things like that. That's just the furnace, right? What about the other things? Making sure that the hoses are rolled up and making sure that there's, that they're disconnected from the outside sillcock so the anti-siphon thing can work properly and the pipes don't freeze. These are all the things that you need to make sure that you're doing. That's why I want to make sure that you're thinking about this based on your specific property. If you got any questions, reach out to me, but be sure before you head out, subscribe, tell your friends, because again, if you don't tell your friends, the terrorists win, right? Okay, have a great rest of your day. Take good care. Remember, if you don't place a value on your free time, someone else will. Take good care.